Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers won 120-106 over the Minnesota Timberwolves, improving to 40-25 on the season. They jumped Minnesota and are now the number 4 seed in the West. They also sweep the season series with the Wolves 3-0. They have an important tiebreaker now over Minnesota. There's a lot of jockeying between the number 3 and number 6 seeds in the West. It will likely come down to the final day of the regular season. So now the Lakers notch an important tiebreaker in that battle, with a couple of opportunities to notch more tiebreakers coming up here, with a big game against Denver on Saturday, then 2 big games against Houston next week on Monday and Wednesday. And the Lakers have won 6 of 7 games and are playing their best basketball of the season. I've been asking for statement wins from this group that have been the one thing missing on their season-long resume, and they just delivered back-to-back statement wins. They followed up their best win of the season with an even better win. And this is like the highest the vibes have been around the Lakers all season. Incredible win today. Also doing so with no LeBron James, no Jackson Hayes, and no Maxi Kleber. So another game that they played recently here without 3 of their 4 biggest players and with only 1 center on the roster. So they also did that against this Minnesota team, which is one of the biggest teams in the NBA, one of the longest teams, one of the most athletic teams in the NBA. And they held their own despite being shorthanded, and despite being shorthanded, particularly in the size department. Just a great win for the Lakers. In my opinion, the best one of the season. This one tops the Knicks win. I think it was more convincing, more decisive, more emphatic, whatever term you want to use. Like it was just a great win all around. And even with LA not having, let's just say this is an understatement of the show, not having a good offensive first half. That's like the kindest way I could possibly put it. I mean, they didn't score for nearly the first 5 minutes of the game. It was something, but they were still playing hard. They were playing well defensively, and the offensive process eventually broke through in the third quarter. And that third quarter ended up being one of their best quarters. I mean, it might have been their best quarter of the season. It's on the short list, but just a great win here for the Lakers. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. I appreciate you all for tuning in late. This is some real late night gang activity. We're past midnight here on the West Coast. For your East Coasters, you guys are some sickos, and I appreciate it. So let's get into the game. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to touch on. It's been a wild day in Lakerland for many reasons. But so Buha's big picture is back-to-back statements. And you guys know I have been harping on this all season. I have been harping on this coming out of the All-Star break, looking ahead at the Lakers schedule and just all the big games that they were going to be playing. The final Thanos ring for the Lakers here was like, get healthy, figure out a way to make the big 3 work better together, which again, for the most part, they've been healthy with a couple guys in and out of the lineup. The big 3 have been better post All-Star break with a +7 net rating together. And then the final thing was beat some of these good teams. You guys have been getting your ass kicked all season by the best teams in the NBA. Up until recently, they were just 4-12 against. I mean, up until these last couple games, they were 4-12 against teams with a 600 win percentage or better, with 10 of those 12 losses being by double figures, and 3 of those 4 wins coming in the first 2 weeks of the season. So it was like we had not seen them beat good teams consistently. It had been a while, and then when they had faced those teams, they had gotten obliterated for the most part. And there have been some recent progress with some single-digit losses to OKC and Denver, but they still needed to get over the hump. And they did that against the Knicks a couple days ago. But one of the things I said that was a great win. That was at that point, in my opinion, the best win of the season. But one of the things I said coming out of that game was I wanted to see if LA could build upon that. Can you go out and beat Minnesota? Can you go out and beat Denver? Can you show that this isn't a fluke? This isn't a one-off, that we're not talking about this 2-3 weeks from now and saying, hey, remember that time the Lakers beat the Knicks but they lost to Minnesota, they lost to Denver, they lost to Houston, and it's a distant memory at that point. But they followed it up and really, I think, built upon that win and transferred a lot of what they did well in that game into this game, and then ultimately did it at a higher level, I think, on both ends of the floor. I thought this was a better performance on both sides of the basketball. Just the way, because I think the difference with this matchup versus the Knicks matchup, in my opinion, is I talked about this during the Knicks show, but Minnesota is just more athletic and they have more physical advantages, where Gobert is one of the biggest players in the league, one of the best rim protectors, interior defenders in the league. Julius Randle is a human rhino who's just bulldozing his way to the rim and has a strength advantage in most of his matchups against non-centers. You have Anthony Edwards, who is in the conversation for pound best athlete in the NBA. And you have Jaden McDaniels, who's a 6'10" small forward who could defend multiple positions and also has gotten much better at attacking weaker defenders. And earlier in his career, teams would slot weaker defenders on him. And you saw tonight when a couple times Luke Kennard was on him, he immediately went into his bag, he went into the post, and he scored over him. So they had some real physical advantages over the Lakers, and it didn't matter tonight. It did not matter. The Lakers neutralized them, and they held Ant to 2 for 15 shooting, 1 for 10 on threes. He did get to the free throw line 10 times, and in some of those fouls and instances, he was able to leverage his athleticism. But a 14-point game for Ant, just LA held him in check, and yes, he had a poor shooting performance, and that's not all on the Lakers defense. But part of the reason why 10 of his 15 shots were threes is because of how LA was flooding, how they were helping, how they were shifting him to certain areas on the floor. And when he wasn't able to generate that penetration, he was settling for contested threes. And he certainly missed some good looks. I think this was a below average performance from him from a shooting perspective, but still really good defense from LA and from multiple defenders. Like Marcus Smart was the primary guy on him. Vando got time on him. I also thought Austin, when he was switched on to him, Luka, when he was guarding him, Rui had a couple nice possessions against, several Laker players did a fantastic job against Ant. Then Julius Randle had a more efficient night, 5 for 11, but still held him relatively in check with 14 points, only 3 free throw attempts for him. And he was able to get by Rui a bit and score over him. And again, when he had a physical advantage, but LA held him in check. McDaniels 3 for 9, Dante DiVincenzo 3 for 9, and then Gobert 0 for 1. So they did a great job against Minnesota's arguably their 5 best players, depending on where you want to put Naz Reid and all that. I think Reid versus DiVincenzo is relatively close, but at least their 5 starters, they held all of them in check. They all shot under 50% from the floor, and LA's defensive game plan, I think particularly against Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, with the doubling, with the help, with not only doubling and helping, but also rotating out to guys on the weak side. I thought it was just a great game plan, and the Lakers have progressively looked more comfortable against the Timberwolves. And then on the offensive end, slow starts for Luka and Austin. I think they were combined 6 for 23 at the half. Luka started 0 for 5. Austin started 0 for 3 and ultimately was 1 for 8 at halftime. But both guys caught fire in the third quarter and finished with great performances, in my opinion. Luka, 31, 11, and 11. Another triple-double for him on 11 for 24 shooting. Austin, 31, 7, and 8. He had 29 points in the second half and was, played a big role in LA icing the game. And it was tied 45-45 at the half. And then LA outscored them 39-23 at the end, to close the third, and then stretch the lead out more before the garbage minutes. So those two, I mean, just straight up, Luka and Austin were the two best players on the floor. And this has now been a trend. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in one of my takeaways. But in the first matchup with these two teams, Luka decisively outplayed Ant. In the second matchup, I thought it was close between Austin and Julius, but I would give Austin a slight edge, and he hit the game-winning shot. Then tonight, Luka outplayed Ant, Austin outplayed Julius, and I would also say Austin outplayed Ant. Like, those were the two best players on the floor, and it does feel like LA has figured something out here against Minnesota. Not to spoil too much of one of my takeaways, but DeAndre Ayton, 14 points, 12 rebounds, a monster second quarter for him. I'm looking at the second quarter box score here, 12 points and 5 rebounds in that quarter. So 12 of his 14 in that second quarter, had 3 offensive rebounds, and 3 of his 6 field goals came directly off of those offensive rebounds. He has now outplayed Rudy Gobert in all 3 matchups this season. And that's been a big difference between the version we saw of the Lakers in the playoffs versus Minnesota versus the version we've seen in the regular season. But I mean, we've been looking for these types of wins from LA. We've been looking for things to sink our teeth into from a positive perspective, and for this team to show a certain amount of life and fight. And they've done that. And I talked about, I think it was at some point in the Q&A after the Knicks game, that for me, like the door's been cracked open. And I think after today, it was pushed open. I have not quite walked back through the door yet in terms of fully buying back into this team, making some noise in the playoffs. But look, I'll just say this. I mean, they're going to play one of Denver, Minnesota, or Houston in round 1. And based on what we've seen in the regular season with them versus Minnesota, and we'll see it next week against Houston, but I think they match up better with the current version of Houston. Again, we'll see. I mean, they got destroyed on Christmas. So the one reference point we have is not positive, but I think Houston has not been playing their best basketball overall since that point. They suffered the Steven Adams season-ending injury. So I think they're more beatable than they were at Christmas time. So look, if they beat the Lakers by double digits in back-to-back games in Houston, it's a different story. But I think the Lakers have a real shot to beat Minnesota or Houston in round 1. And they also might have home court in either one of those matchups, depending on how things play out here. Houston does, I believe, have the easiest remaining schedule of the 4 teams jockeying from 3 to 6. So I think right now, the most likely scenario, we'll see what happens with Denver. Denver's got a brutal schedule this week. They're playing the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Lakers. So Denver's kind of been trending in the wrong direction. The Rockets have the easiest remaining schedule. So maybe there's a scenario here where it's like Houston 3, LA or Minnesota in the 4-5, with LA having the tiebreaker. So if those teams, if they tie record-wise, LA is the 4, and then maybe Denver at the 6, that would put LA on the same side as the OKC, or your same side of the bracket as OKC. But I think if the Lakers match up with Minnesota or Houston, again, I'm going to reserve some judgment on the Houston prediction. I think they have a real shot to come out of the first round. And then at that point, I think this group making the second round, with some of the limitations that they have, particularly on the defensive end, some of the depth limitations they have, I think that would be a strong season. I don't want to go successful, because I know for the Lakers it's championship or bust every year, but at least based on the roster, I think that would be a successful season. In terms of notable performers, I already touched on, I think, the 3 key guys, but let's get into it a little bit more. So Luka 31-point triple-double, 31, 11, and 11. Led the team in assists, was second on the team in rebounds, just to DA. But again, Luka had a slow start by his standards. I thought he was creating some good looks off the dribble, missed a few mid-range jumpers. But from that point of starting 0 for 5, he went 11 for 19 the rest of the way. And he did it in a variety of ways. It was the step back. He also had a catch and shoot 3, but he had some nice plays in transition, getting downhill in the pick and roll, had a nice cut where Jaden McDaniels just kind of lost track of him and he cuts to the basket, gets a nice layup. So I thought it was just another awesome Luka game. He's been putting together a really impressive stretch here of games in a row and led the team in plus minus. Lakers were a plus 20 in Luka's 35 minutes, and he was the best player on the floor. And there's been a lot of Ant Luka comparisons. Ant just had the commercial, which I think he took the biggest shot at Luka out of anybody that he took a shot of, or took a shot at, just based on the caricature or whatever that they used of Luka. So yeah, I mean, again, they've played twice. Luka has been clearly the best player on the floor in both of the games, and we'll see how much of that translates potentially into a playoff series. But it does feel like the Lakers have figured something out here, and Luka looks as comfortable against Minnesota as he did in Dallas. And Jaden McDaniels was the primary guy on him for basically the entire evening. They did mix in some Ant and was switching at times. Randall would end up on him or whatnot, but Luka did whatever he wanted tonight, and also did. I mean, only 6 free throw attempts for him. That could have been more free throw attempts as well. He easily could have had a 10, 12 free throw attempt performance. 4 turnovers, so a little bit higher than his recent turnovers, but this is having Jaden McDaniels against you for an entire game. I think that's kind of part of it. Austin, to me, this is not his best game of the season because he had several huge games in pre-Christmas, but I think this was even better than the Knicks game, and it was not shaping up that way with the first half and just some of his struggles against Ant and DiVincenzo and their defense. I think he was missing some good looks. That was part of it for sure. But Austin just didn't look like the same player he looked like against the Knicks in that second half of the Pacers game. But he broke out in a real way in that third quarter, had a couple of 4-point plays, had another and one jumper over McDaniels. I thought competed really well on the glass with the 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Okay, he's struggling a bit. He's looking to get other guys going. Had several nice feeds to DeAndre Ayton, including that behind the back look in the second quarter. Just 1 turnover for Austin. Let me actually pivot back to Luka because there was another point I really wanted to make with Luka. His defense tonight was great. I thought Luka's defense tonight was great. I think it has been trending in a really positive direction lately. But Luka's defense tonight, the 2 steals and a block. He had so many. The challenge play where he strips Gobert and they called that a foul. It gets overturned. But he was guarding Randall and Ant and McDaniels and several guys just based on the Lakers switching scheme, and he held his own. He was being really aggressive, playing passing lanes and jumping out to try to just make guys catch the ball in a retreat. And I just thought his defense tonight that was it was not just the 30-point triple double and him really dominating the final 3 quarters or on 2 quarters because he didn't play much in the fourth. It was also the defense, but back to Austin. So 31, 7 and 8. He got to the free throw line, mentioned it, had 3 and 1s, but the shot started to fall. And I think that's been the other thing with Austin lately has been outside of that Philly game, the 3-point shot has not really been falling consistently, and he just hasn't had the same amount of volume. So tonight it was not only the three, I mean, he was 4 for 10 on threes, 6 for 10 inside the arc. So after starting 1 for 8, he finishes 10 for 20, which means he went 9 for 12 over in the second half. Like just an incredible second half from him. And that was ultimately what I think pushed LA over the edge, because if like only Luka had Luka's performance, I think this is a close game that's going into the fourth. The Lakers needed somebody else to step up. Austin stepped up in a big way and ends up with a huge game. I think, again, a better game slightly than the Knicks game, and just really impressive back-to-back performances from Austin. DeAndre Ayton, 14 points, 12 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds for him, 7 for 11 from the floor, outplayed Rudy Gobert, and had a steal. I don't know if you guys caught his post game. I did not catch it because I was in the locker room. He went at the same time as Austin, but I did watch the video of it. It was very odd. I don't understand why he was in a bad mood. He played his most minutes in, I don't even know how many games, but he played 34 minutes tonight. He had a great game. And just from the jump, he had like no interest in talking to, and it was like, it always starts with Mike Trudell. So like Mike Trudell asked him 3 straight questions and he just had no interest in answering any of them. And then I thought all the questions were fair. There was no like fishing for anything or no like odd questions. It was all pretty straightforward and positive. And he just did not want to deal with the media today for whatever reason. So I thought that was an odd end to his night, but like in terms of the basketball, he outplayed Rudy Gobert, and I think like his stat line, I think he had 12 and 10 in the first half, so he wasn't like as impactful from a statistical perspective in the second half. But I thought his closeouts tonight, so some of the rotations and closeouts he had, some of the help defense, and just the general activity of it felt like a continuation of the Knicks game where he's just buying into his roles, setting screens, rolling, diving, doing all these little things that the Lakers need him to do to be at their ceiling. So want to give DA a big deserved shout out there. Rui had 2 fouls at halftime and picked up 3 fouls in the first 2 minutes of the third quarter. So he was basically out for most of the second half, but 9 points for him and hit a big momentum 3 to close the first half. I think he's actually defended Randall, I think, like fairly well. If you look at some of the matchup data over the last couple of years, I think we saw it was a little different in last postseason. I think it's been a little different this season because he was also matched. Like Randall had 33 in that game in Minnesota. Today, I thought Randall got the better of him. So I think that's a matchup that the Lakers have to kind of figure out. And, I assume LeBron will get that matchup moving forward. But overall, like Rui, I hit a couple of, had a nice mid-range pull up, got that transition bucket from Luka, the lob. So, I would say like solid overall performance from him outside. Like the fouling, he was on the short end of some of that. And then Marcus Smart got off to the first 5 points of the game for the Lakers were from Marcus Smart. Didn't really score much the rest of the way, but finished with 8 points. I thought he was just incredible tonight defensively as the primary defender on Ant, but also defending multiple positions. Just set a tone and like. 3 for 7, 1 for 4. I know people are always going to look at the shooting with Marcus, but a couple steals, no turnovers. And I just think he's a winning player who is always adding, he's always in the positive column, in my opinion, for the Lakers. Off the bench, Luke Kennard, 10 points, 5 of 8 shooting, 0 for 2 on threes. The Lakers, like Minnesota did a good job tracking him and just not like being in his airspace, not letting him get open. But Luke made them pay with cuts and drives and igniting the blender. And, they did target him a bit. He had 4 fouls and they like, that was that's something that the Lakers are just gonna have to navigate. Is like teams are going to target Luke because he can be physically overwhelmed. I think the most of anybody in their rotation. He's also the shortest player of the rotation, primary guys outside of Marcus, but Marcus has got like 30 pounds on him, or at least. So like that's something the Lakers have to navigate. But I thought Luke was solid tonight. Jake LaRavia, so interesting game for Jake LaRavia because I think the positive. Let's start with the positive. So positive was he had 7 rebounds, including 5 offensive rebounds. I thought that Lakers as a team had 14, 5 from DA, 5 from Jake. So that is a margins thing. And LA ended up taking not only, so the free throws ended up actually going in Minnesota's favor. Minnesota was +2 in free throw attempts. Lakers had 13 more shot attempts than Minnesota on a night where they were, the final numbers again are a little bit skewed because of garbage time, but LA only shot 2% better than Minnesota, and Minnesota actually attempted more free throws, made more free throws, and shot better at the free throw line. And they were pretty similar in threes. It was a final of 11 threes versus 10 threes for Minnesota. So the margins here with the turnovers and the offensive rebounds were 2 huge swing factors in LA's favor. And Jake LaRavia was a huge part of that. He had over a third of LA's offensive rebounds. So I understand the flip side was he went 1 for 7. He missed a couple of open threes. He basically airballed a dunk. He missed a couple of layups. But he got to the free throw line 8 times. And remember, let's go back to beginning of the season. His best offensive performance was against Minnesota. So remember, he had that game where I think he started 10 for 10 or something crazy like that. And so I think he's shown he can compete in this matchup and be a factor. I think his size and physicality on the wing are a factor against, especially when Minnesota is going to DeSumo or Kyle Anderson, who's a bit slower, Bones Highland, who's a bit smaller. He can physically overwhelm and dominate some of those guys. So I will also note that when Rui went out, and maybe they would have won. I don't want to say they wouldn't have went on the run if Rui were in there, but I thought Jake was a huge part of that third quarter run as well, with the offensive rebounding, with the little things, with the defense. They were +3 in Rui's 2 minutes and then +13 during Jake's shift. So he was a part of the best stretch of the game. Jake was out there. Now, he needs to be better offensively. He cannot be missing dunks and layups. And it does feel like sometimes he's just overthinking things a little bit out there. But I also don't want to overlook best bench plus minus by a mile. Got to the free throw line, got offensive rebounds, and also had 4 assists, which was the 3rd most on the team behind Luka and Austin. So I think he did some things out there that if you want to focus on just the shooting and the scoring, yes, that was not where it needed to be. I'm also going to factor in getting to the free throw line, getting the offensive rebounds, passing the ball well. Those things matter as well, including the defense, which is not really calculated here on the stat sheet. And then Vando, I thought, had some good defensive moments. He also had a rough offensive performance with 2 for 5 shooting, 0 for 2 on threes. One of the threes hit the side of the backboard, but had a couple offensive rebounds himself. And I think just looking at Marcus and Jake and Vando, those guys with their defense, their energy, those guys have been, I feel like multipliers for the rest of the group, depending on who's out there. And you've seen those guys lead by example, and everybody else, I think, be galvanized by that from an effort perspective. And then stat of the night, it's got to be for me, season low 7 turnovers. The Lakers did a masterful job of taking care of the ball tonight. The decision making, the execution. I thought the offensive organization and execution was great tonight. JJ said they had a 128 expected offensive rating in that first half, and then ended up having a 153 offensive rating in the second half. So I don't know if he meant expected or I would expect it to have just been the actual offensive rating, because they scored 75 points in the second half. So they dominated the Wolves there. And then we're going to rattle through these three takeaways in part because I kind of spoiled a couple of them during my opening monologue. But takeaway number one is the Lakers have seemingly solved the Wolves. And I just think like I view this matchup much differently than I did coming into the season. Like the bad taste in your mouth coming out of that playoff series, but LA going 3-0 against them. And like really only two of these we could take, I think, things away because I don't want to take away too much from the game in Minnesota where there was no Luka, no LeBron, no Ant. Like that's a lot of just like offense and just big pieces out on both sides. And LeBron has not played in this matchup. LeBron did not play in the two matchups in LA. So LeBron is yet to face the Timberwolves this season. But I just feel a lot more confident in this matchup. And I'm sure on some level there's like a motivation element for LA where when you get embarrassed the way that they got embarrassed in the first round last year, you're going to take these matchups a bit more, seriously and just want to show that this year is going to be different if they play Minnesota. But I think that the game plan against Ant tonight, the game plan against Julius, and the way that, I mean, if you think about it, it was a close first half in both of the LA matchups, but LA eventually prevailed. They won the first one 128-110. So they beat them by 18. Then that second matchup in Minnesota, they were up big and Minnesota went on a big run in the fourth quarter to make it a game. And then Austin hits the game winner, but they dominated a lot of that game. And then tonight, close first half, and then LA pulls away in the third quarter again and wins this one by 14. So they beat them twice by double figures in LA, and they were up big for a lot of that game in the game in Minnesota, despite being shorthanded without two of their three leading scorers. And just like they still were able to control most of that game. So I don't want to go so far as to say like the Lakers have the Wolves number or that the Lakers would be decisive favorites in a potential rematch with these two teams. But depending on who has home court advantage and just depending on how the rest of the season goes for the Lakers, I think the Lakers would have a real shot to beat the Wolves in a rematch, excuse me. And that was not necessarily how I was feeling coming into the season, and not even necessarily how I was feeling recently with LA's play and Minnesota's play. Like Minnesota has been sort of the NBA nerd, like sleeper pick to make the conference finals or finals. A lot of people have been hyping up the Wolves, but I think the Lakers match up pretty well with them. And ultimately, to me, it comes down to like, they have a Luka problem. They cannot guard Luka. And I think we saw that at times in that first round series, but with some better fitting pieces, I think this is, and just more depth. And honestly, DeAndre Ayton has been a big difference. I think that the Lakers have a much better chance of beating the Wolves. And speaking of DeAndre Ayton, that brings me to takeaway number 2, which is the man in the middle. And I made this point earlier, but DeAndre Ayton has outplayed Rudy Gobert in all 3 games this season. And I think he's made a real impact. I think he's made a real difference. This was actually his lowest scoring output against the Wolves this season, comparing it across the 3 games. So DA was brought in part because of the way that the Lakers lost that series to the Wolves, and would have loved to have seen what Jackson looked like tonight. Would have, maybe they go with the 3-headed center rotation if Jackson and Maxey are both available, and those guys need to get right. It was an odd situation with Jackson Jackson was ruled out like 12 minutes before the game. It was very odd, but I think DA has not always lived up to his end of the bargain this season, and I have been harsh on him at times. I think deservedly so, but I think he deserves his flowers though for the way he's played against Minnesota. And like, this has been some of his best performances this season have come against Minnesota, and I think that's notable. And I think that's another thing that potentially portends well into a Lakers-Wolves rematch. So the Lakers needed a player who could hold their own in the paint, a guy who could win some of those physical battles against Gobert, against Randall, get offensive rebounds, protect the rim, finish through traffic, and also be a switch beater if the Wolves are going to go that route. DA has checked all those boxes. So I think DA has been a huge addition into this particular matchup. We'll see we've not really seen him against Denver. Remember, he got injured in the first half. He got injured in both Denver games, in both of the first halves in Denver. So I want to see what he looks like against Denver. I want to see definitely a better showing against Houston next week, because his showing on Christmas was downright awful. So he's got to show he could do this against a couple of the other potential first round opponents. But against Minnesota, he has been awesome. And third and final takeaway before we get into the Q&A here is I'm actually going to pivot away from this game. And we got to talk about what happened tonight. Bam Adebayo scored 83 points, passing Kobe Bryant and his 81 points, the second most points in NBA history up until tonight. And I'm of two minds with this, and I might get some questions in here. But so on the one hand, I think it's difficult to score that amount of points, right? Regardless of the context and the circumstance, and we will get into that. That's the second part here. But I think he ended up taking 43 shots and 43 free throw attempts. To take 86 combined shots in a game is tiring. To add in rebounding and defense, and there was not much of that going on down the stretch of this game, but that in itself is an impressive physical feat. But to score 83 points, I think that it's an achievement. It's an accomplishment. It is now maybe going to be the primary thing we remember about Bam Adebayo. We'll see. He's won a couple of Olympic gold medals. He's been to the finals a couple times, but that could very well be the thing that he is most associated with moving forward, and the thing that we remember most about him. So I want to acknowledge it was special what happened tonight. It was cool what happened tonight to a degree. And 83 points is 83 points. I say all that to say, let's go to the second part of this. I did have an issue with how things unfolded down the stretch of this game. I assume most of you have seen how this went. I was not watching until the last few minutes. I was aware of what was going on, but just during pregame, I'm not really paying too much attention to what's going on with other games. But you see 31 in the first quarter, you see 62 at the end of 3. It's okay, let's see how much he can score. But the final few minutes of that game were just absolutely ridiculous with the Wizards. On one hand, the Wizards kind of deserved it with how much of a calamity they were on defense. But with Miami intentionally fouling Washington to get more possessions, and then intentionally missing free throws that were non-Bam free throws to try to get more possessions. He actually got fouled on that possession, but they didn't call it. And then Washington, not being able to just deny, if I were the Wizard, if I was Keefe, the Wizards coach, I'm triple teaming Bam. The game's over at that point. I don't care if anybody's put all 5 guys on him. Let the Heat get layup after layup after layup. I don't care anymore. I'm not letting that dude get 83 points. But the fact that they could not prevent him from getting the ball, they couldn't stop fouling him. It was sort of a mockery of the basketball gods and just records and I don't know. So on the one hand, I think it's cool what happened. Just the actual the final result of Bam Adebayo scored 83 points. People, I'm not the first person to say this, but if I was talking about it with someone at the game, I was if you came to me this morning and told me that someone tonight is going to score 83 points. Like, how many guesses would it have taken? Like, you see the slate of games, you see who's playing. How many guesses would it have taken? I was like, somewhere, like, he would not have been in my top 10 guesses. He would not have been maybe even in my top 15. I think that would have been borderline. I think the one thing that helped tonight was no Hero, no Norman Powell. So, like, he was going to have to be force-fed the ball maybe a little bit more. But, yeah, I mean, it's just I didn't love it, I will say. And it's unfortunate. I think that, he passed Kobe in that way. And look, we don't have film of Wilt scoring 100. And I would say, I remember watching the Kobe 81 live. Like, they needed most of those points to win that game and to make the comeback that they made. At the end there, the last few minutes, like, Kobe was out there when the game was decided. The Lakers bench and non-Kobe offense could have potentially blown that game. So it's like the devil's advocate with it. But, like, yes, Kobe stayed in a little bit extra to get the 81. And at that point, it was like feed Kobe the ball or draw fouls, whatever. But it happened more in the flow of the game. Like, this game was over in the third quarter. Bam had 62. I don't mind. Go get your 70. Go even get 75. Go even try to get 83. But the way they went about it, it stopped being like basketball. And it was like, how can we sort of gamify the end of the game? But that's my thoughts on it. Kudos to him for going out and getting 83. It's for me, like, I'm a big NBA historian, and I mean, one of the cool things with NBA history is you will have situations like this where a guy you would not expect to do something great or extraordinary does it, and now he's in the history books forever. At the same time, when you look at, like, the guys who are in the 70+ club, it's very hollowed ground. And I think he got to 70+ legitimately. It was like, once he got into the mid 70s, that's when it stopped being about, like, actually, like, having him score in the flow of the offense or even feeding him. It just became like, we need to spam this. And he's taken, like, pull up triple team threes, and I don't know. It just stopped feeling like basketball. That was my biggest issue with it. It stopped feeling like, again, there's situations where teams will try to force feed a guy to get a career high or to hit 50 or to hit 60, whatever. That's like, it's a cousin of this, but this took it like, the game was over. It was already decided. Miami was up 20. They didn't need to keep fouling. They didn't, like, I don't know. I just think it went a little bit too far in trying to get him the record, but it is what it is. It took 86 shots. That is wild. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A here. First one from Jay. Thank you for the super chat. DA in 3 games versus Minnesota, 15 points per game, 22 of 37, 67%, 10 rebounds per game, and the most unquantifiable impact effort. Agreed. I think he has been great in the Minnesota matchups. I think he's been a real difference maker. And I think there's been a real difference with him versus Jackson. Like, I think this is where DA just has a clear advantage over Jackson in terms of his, like, when he wants to be physical, he's objectively, like, stronger and more imposing than Jackson. And this has not been a great matchup for Jackson going back to last season, but so far this season it has been for DA. So yeah, I mean, I would say if you're just, like, picking the first round matchup for DA specifically, I think Minnesota is his best matchup. And Gobert was some nice contests tonight, did have his 12 rebounds, but he's just an absolute non-factor offensively. Sarah Talks Ball, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for being a member. Gritty win despite a lot of adversity. Good couple of bounce backs for this team. Lots to be proud of. I hope this Ayton renaissance is real. Agreed on all points. Really gritty win. Second straight game. Lakers won with their defense. And now, so JJ said they've been a top 15 defense over the past 25 games. But if you look at it coming out of the All-Star break, let's see if the numbers are updated off of tonight. I believe they are. This should be post All-Star break. LA is 5th in offense and they are 15th in defense. So that's basically it. If you guys remember, I could go back to my season preview, but I could also go back to some of the episodes I did in the beginning of the season. I said the blueprint for LA to be a contender and to be a team that can make noise in the playoffs was being a top 5 offense, ideally top 3, but at least top 5, and being at least average on defense. They have hit both of those check marks coming out of the All-Star break. They have also added some statement wins on top of that. And if I also said, remember going into this week, I was like, can LA go at least 1-2, if not 2-1 against New York, Minnesota, and Denver? They're already 2-0. So even if they lose to Denver, like, mission accomplished there in terms of just showing you can beat the best teams in the league. So, I mean, it's been a best 2-game stretch of the season. Like, as crazy as that sounds, like, I don't think it's debatable. Connor Phillips, thank you for the super chat. People who say Ant versus Luka are clowns. Luka on another level. I agree. I don't think they're on the same level. I think they're both top 10 players. I'm trying to think of where I have. I mean, for me, Ant is probably somewhere in the. I mean, with how Wemby's playing, I think Wemby's in the top 5. So I would probably have Ant 6th or 7th, with the upside to be in that like top 5 or 4 conversation. But certainly I have Luka multiple spots ahead of him. And also for like tiering the guys, I don't think they're on the same tier. So yeah, I agree with you. Martin, thank you for the super chat. Shout out to all the idiots that doubted AR. People are saying he wasn't worth the money. We got to talk about it. LeBron needs to read the room. Well, I was waiting for the first LeBron question. Didn't take long. Let's get into a little bit of this. So, yeah, I mean, I think Austin has been awesome the last couple of games. And of note, he's done this against 2 of the best defenses in the league. Both New York and Minnesota are top 10 defenses. They have athleticism and length on the perimeter. With New York, you got OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. Brunson was guarding him at times, but they have several guys to throw at Austin. And then Minnesota obviously has Ant guarding him a bunch. DiVincenzo is a hard-nosed, tough defender. McDaniels will switch on to him. So Austin was terrific the last couple of games. And I think when this has been something I have tried to state when we have the Austin conversation and when we have the conversation when he struggles, it's like, I feel like there is a segment of people that only wants to have the Austin discussion when he's playing poorly or when he plays poorly against an elite team or an elite defense or an athletic defense. And it's like, I understand that. And he needs to be better. If the Lakers play San Antonio or OKC, I mean, they'll play OKC a couple more times this season. Austin needs to be better in those 2 matchups than he was in the first 2. If they play San Antonio again in the second round, third round, I think those are like really the only 2 possibilities. Austin needs to be better. If they somehow like disaster strikes and they end up in the play-in playing Phoenix, Austin needs to be better against Phoenix than he's been up to this point in the season. But I also think Austin, he had a good game against Minnesota the first game. He had another good game against them in Minnesota and iced it with the game winner. And then I think arguably had his best game against them tonight. I think this one versus that second one is close. He was more efficient tonight. That second one, though, he had 16 assists, a career high, and a game winner. So, I might give the edge there. But yeah, I mean, I think this is why you guys know, I've continued to be optimistic on Austin. I've continued to remain bullish on him. I have acknowledged the warts and I have been more critical of him lately when he hasn't been performing up to the level the Lakers have necessarily needed. But that doesn't I've not been out on him by any means. And I, especially when the Lakers don't have all 3 of their big 3, whoever's that number 2 guy has often looked better. And that's just been a reality of the season. Now, to the next point, I think one of the things the Lakers are going to have to figure out here over the final, we got 17 games left. It's crazy that the season is almost over. It's something that I've been preaching over the last few weeks as we've had more of a sample size, really since like Austin returned, but also as we've had more of a sample size with Austin and LeBron next to Luka. I think at this point, I think I'll make the same point I made multiple times before. I think Austin should be the secondary scorer behind Luka, and I think LeBron should be the secondary passer / playmaker behind Luka. And the distinction there is Austin has been a better scorer and a more efficient scorer than LeBron this season. LeBron is clearly the better passer, and LeBron's passing out of the post and attacking mismatches has been a real weapon for LA when he's been at his best. But I also think we've seen a certain offensive ceiling with Austin when he's at his best and when he's empowered with a certain role. So I think that's the Lakers have to find that balance. And earlier in the season, when LeBron returned from injury, I think he took more of a step back. And that's why, I think Austin was playing better at that time because LeBron was more the third option. Then when Austin returned, the Lakers were already in a certain groove. LeBron had just been playing his best basketball while Austin was out. And then LeBron has been more of the second option, and Austin has taken a step back. But this could be an opportunity to course correct. I think it should be, from a usage perspective, Austin at number 2, LeBron at number 3. From a getting downhill in the pick and roll, self-shot creation, I just think Austin's been at a different level this season. And I think you saw it tonight. He repeatedly got downhill. He was able to shake multiple Wolves defenders off of the dribble. And he's just not necessarily getting those same opportunities. I think another thing that the Lakers need to figure out too is part of Austin's success has also come in having his own shift as the primary guy next to the rest of 4 other role players. And one of the things they had done recently was shift more into Luka and Austin as the primary bench combination. And then really Luka and Austin, Luka also getting a shift, and then LeBron getting shifts by himself. And I think they might need to balance that a little bit better and get a little bit more creative with that, where it's okay, Luka and Austin are great together, and that pairing was great last year. It's been great this year. They need to share the floor together by themselves. LeBron has been great in the LeBron only minutes. So LeBron needs those shifts by himself. But I also think Austin, they need to find some way to get, even if it's one shift a game or maybe a short shift each half, I would like to see a 3-minute, 4-minute shift of Austin being the guy and just saying all right, Austin, maybe you haven't gotten as many touches to start this game because Luka starts with a certain usage in the first half. And maybe, then you played with Luka later into the first quarter, then you came out, then LeBron had his own shift, but now Austin, we're giving you your shift, go cook for 3-4 minutes, get into a certain rhythm and flow, and then move forward. So I think it's something that the Lakers are going to have to figure out. But I continue to say, I don't see them changing the starting lineup. I do not see LeBron coming off the bench. So we have to operate under that reality. And if the reality is the big 3 are going to continue to start, I think we could continue to harp on it and debate it and discuss it. And I know that's the big thing right now. I just continue to say, if this is the reality and they're going to continue to start, how do you optimize that? And that's, I think, the thing the Lakers need to figure out the next 17 games is, and to be clear, it has been better coming out of the All-Star break, +7 net rating with those 3 together after basically being a -10 for most of the pre-All-Star break portion. There's been some progress there. Now, part of that's been against crappier teams. And I think that the final thing to kind of tie everything together, LA does need to get healthy. They've been healthier, but not fully healthy. They need to continue the big 3 playing better together, but they need to also do that in big games with the big 3. Because again, I know there's a lot of chatter, LeBron come off the bench or LeBron diminished role, all this stuff. He's going to continue to start. But even if you were to ultimately enact that, I keep making the point, they're going to share the floor for a certain amount of time. And if they are a negative or if they are a neutral in those minutes, the Lakers just will not be good enough. So regardless of if the big three are starting together, if you're bringing LeBron off the bench, if you're bringing Austin off the bench, if like however you want to configure it, they're still going to share the floor for 15 to 20 minutes, and they still need to be better in those 15 to 20 minutes than they've been up to this point. Like if you play Minnesota, you're still going to have them playing 20 minutes or so. And like, can they win those minutes against better teams? That's my question that I don't have an answer to. But certainly, like, I mean, they're now what? They're now 6-12 against teams 600 and above. None of the 6 wins have come with all 3 of those guys. It's only been 1 or 2 of the guys. And that's something that they just have, like, they finally have to put that together. That's the final thing here over the final 17 games. Like, can they win at least a couple games with the big 3, right? They got the statement wins. They've shown they can beat the good teams, but can you do it with everyone together, working around some of the warts and limitations that the 3 have together? Connor Phillips, thank you for the super chat. Luka and AR has Luka and Kyrie potential. Tonight shows it. I agree. That's why I have made the Kyrie and Jalen Brunson comparisons in terms of Luka's fit with those guys in Dallas. Of course, that is, I would say, it's pre-New York Jalen Brunson and like post-prime Kyrie. I think in Dallas, he's been post-prime. I mean, still a great player, but like not quite at his peak in Cleveland and Brooklyn. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I was recently watching some Kyrie film from the 2024 season, just out of curiosity to kind of see like comparing he and Austin, and undeniably like Kyrie's speed, quickness, ball handling, his ability to attack closeouts, get downhill. Like there is a difference there. He's just faster than Austin, like, and he's got maybe the best handle in NBA history. So there's certainly some differences between them, but I also think Austin at his best is attacking, is getting downhill. So like, that's where I think some of the similarities come in. And like Austin has more size than Kyrie. So Austin can leverage that more in some of his drives or some of his mid-range game in a way that Kyrie, he has to rely on that more with the speed and the ball handling to create that separation. So yeah, I mean, I comparing him to Kyrie is obviously high praise for Austin, but he's had a really good season, and he's got to continue to show he can do it in the big games, the big moments. And I think ultimately he's got to show he can do it on a playoff run in this role, right? Because I think he showed it in 2023, but it was a different circumstances, lower expectations, different role. He sort of emerged into being the number 3 on that team, but it wasn't clear cut that there wasn't the same expectations. He wasn't in a contract year where he could earn up to $240 million. So a lot of stakes, a lot of pressure on Austin in this postseason. But I think the vision for the Lakers, and this is what the Lakers believe in, like they believe it can be that type of partnership. Mo Love, OG, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for being a member. Is it safe to jump back on the bandwagon or fire Rob? Where we at? This is a question for the fan base. This isn't really a question for me. I would say they are roping me back in. I mean, it's just undeniable that they've looked like a different team. Like this is the best basketball they played all season. That these last couple games were their best wins of the season, their best performances of the season. And it's like they have been, I think, generally trending in the right direction here, but they've also had, the Boston loss. Boston loss was like 2.5 weeks ago. Like it was not that long ago that they lost to Boston in embarrassing. I mean, that stretch of Boston, Orlando, Phoenix was 2 weeks ago. And that was like the worst stretch of the season. So they're not far removed from that stretch, but they did use the Golden State, Sacramento, New Orleans part of the schedule to get right. They had a competitive loss to Denver, and now they've beaten Indiana, New York, and Minnesota. So for being honest, this 6 of 7 stretch, like they have beaten 4 bad teams and beaten 2 really good teams and then lost to a really good team. So I would say they're 4-0 against below average teams, and I'm putting Golden State there just because there was no Steph in that game, and they've been sort of treading water. And then 2-1 against New York, Minnesota, and Denver. So been trending in the right direction, especially these last few games. I would say, like from the Denver game on, I think they showed something in that game, but they got to keep it going. But yeah, I mean, look, I think one of the big things here is like the Lakers are in a pretty good position to be the 3 or 4 seed. Like Houston's got a tougher schedule than them, but it's certainly possible that they end up earning the number 3 seed over them. And it's also possible they earn the number 4 seed over Minnesota and Denver. So if the Lakers end up in the 3 or 4 and have home court, that just by nature kind of puts them in the driver's seat to advance to the second round. Now, they were in the same position last year. They had a bunch of statement wins. They were the 3 seed. They won 50 games. They ended up losing in 5. So it doesn't mean nothing is guaranteed. You still got to show up and play. But I think it's, if people want to jump on the bandwagon and talk crazy, I don't have an issue with that. The Rob stuff, we've discussed that before. Yeah. Jay, thank you for the super chat. Would love for Braun to come back and play like he did in the Olympics, Swiss Army knife type player, almost Draymond-like. Think things could get fun if so. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think the challenge that the Lakers are facing right now, and this is just the reality of the starting group, right? Is like there are 3-star builds that work, but there are also 3-star builds that don't. And I think the Lakers are not quite on the full side of like not working, but they have undeniably like tilted that way. And if you just look at the entirety of the lineup data going back to last season, the big 3 have been a net negative together. So while they haven't been like a disaster, like maybe the Phoenix big 3, they have also not been a resounding success either. So I think the challenge is the optimal roster build or the optimal lineup build is probably closer to what they've been starting more recently in terms of 2 stars. Like if you're just trying to have an optimal lineup, like forget even the Lakers players. Let's just build this out here, or like the general archetypes of their players. You'd want like 2 stars, scorers and playmakers. You'd want a defensive type like a Marcus Smart. You'd want a shooter like a Rui. I mean, ideally you have like both of those guys can shoot and defend, but with the Lakers, that they are allergic to 2-way players. So you have 1 shooter and 1 defender, and then you have the rim running, rim protecting big man. And like, that's the general archetypes and framework of the current starting group. So when you add in a 3rd star to that, it throws it off out of whack, because we discussed the whole Marcus versus Rui thing all season. And there was this element of like, it'd be great if you could just combine Marcus and Rui, right? If Marcus could shoot like Rui, or Rui could defend like Marcus and play with that energy, that's like the perfect player to put next to those 3. But you have to pick between the 2. So with Marcus, you're giving up some of the shooting, some of the gravity. Teams are going to put their centers on him, cheat off of him. And with Rui, you're giving up the defense. And just, we've seen the lineup data, Rui, LeBron, Luka, it's a no-go, not good. Then you have DA, who's very up and down with his energy, his focus. And he has honestly seemed to play like more, he's had like more energy sometimes when he's playing next to like this lineup compared to the other one. And it's been interesting because like the DA Rui combination has been much better in this configuration than like when Rui was starting as the 3. So there's something to that as well. But yeah, I mean, I think if LeBron comes back, and I think LeBron, I will note, is a guy, and we've seen, especially in the Banshee lineups, like when the Banshees are getting after it defensively, LeBron has ramped that up. And I think he's been a big part of some of the best Banshee bench stretches. And there's a reason why they've been about a +8 in the LeBron bench groups. So I think LeBron, seeing how the Lakers are playing, is going to come back and play with a certain amount of energy and verve and tenacity and buy into that. And if Luka's defending the way Luka's been defending, and Austin's defending the way that Austin's been defending, and Marcus is doing Marcus things, and DA is also like, I don't think LeBron wants to be the guy out there who's sticking out like a sore thumb, not playing as hard as the rest of the group. Like one of the big things with the starting group has been they have not consistently played hard as a unit. They've been locked in the last couple games or last 3 games. Post like middle of the first quarter against Indiana, they've been locked in. And this has got to be something that they continue once LeBron comes back. But I agree. I think it does alter the pick and roll game because obviously the Luka DA pick and roll is the bread and butter of the starting group. But I think they could find a way to use LeBron more in the post and elbows as a facilitator and then run some of those off-ball actions with Luka and Austin. Muta? I hope I didn't butcher that too bad, but appreciate the super chat here. Yo, I listen to you every day. You're my GOAT. Thank you. I appreciate that. Random stat, Smart has beat the Wolves 13 consecutive times. Last loss in February 2016. Can he be the X factor? I had no idea about this stat, but that is a crazy stat. And he's beaten them 3 times this year, or did he might have missed, I feel like he might have missed that second game. Let me double check here if he's played in, I'm pretty sure he played in the first one. Yes, he played in the first one. Wow. Remember when Gabe was starting over Marcus? That's a war crime. He did not play in the second one. That's absolutely insane that Gabe was starting over Marcus to start the season. But yeah, I mean, I think Marcus was great tonight. I think he can handle the Ant matchup like reasonably well. Like, of course, Ant is Ant. He's going to get downhill. He's going to split a double or, drop coverage. But I like Marcus is a winner. Marcus is just, he's a competitor. He's a winner. He makes winning plays. He does all the small things. And, I think Marcus has been great all season. So I did not know that, but apparently he's the Lakers' good luck charm. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. Don't want to be a negativity fan here, but I need to see Lakers with Braun destroying the Wolves, not just Luka, AR, and Braun problem, but also other guys who don't play with more energy when Braun playing, especially with DA and Rui. So I actually agree. Like with Rui, I think it's more straightforward where Rui's naturally, this is a point I've made, and this is part of why I have not thought or didn't think that Rui should have been the starter, is Rui is a 4. Rui is a 4. He is not a 3. He has been miscast in LA as a 3 in part because LeBron is a 4. And to fit Rui in, he's had to play the 3 next to LeBron. But I've made this point a million times. If you are optimizing for Rui specifically and you're trying to utilize Rui in the best possible way, it is Rui at the 4, not at the 3. So I think when LeBron is out, it's straightforward for Rui. Rui starts, Rui plays more, he gets more shots, he gets more touches. And we know with Rui, playing time and touches are 2 huge motivating factors for him. He's even talked about with the bench role, he doesn't necessarily care as much about starting as he does about playing and potentially closing. So with Rui, the carrot is there for motivation when LeBron's out of, I get to start, I get to play a certain amount, I get a certain amount, more usage, more shots. So the Rui one, I think, is more straightforward. With DA, I'm not quite as sure why he has been more. It could be a usage thing as well, because I think he does, like, what you take LeBron's usage out and the usage is going to be dispersed. And I think the 3 guys who benefit the most are Austin, Rui, and DA. So it makes some sense that you split that usage up. There is going to be renewed energy and awareness and focus from these guys, and they're going to play even harder. So maybe it's as simple as that with DA, but I feel like I've seen it even in some of the games where he hasn't been as involved offensively. I have noticed it feels like he just plays harder in this configuration versus the other one. But again, I do feel like it's probably a usage thing. This though is like a little bit of my problem with both of those players, that I understand the human element of like you get more usage, you try harder, but I think their floor at times has been like, I think there needs to be a baseline level of like giving a shit that I think both players have been a little bit inconsistent with, and below that line, that it's like, even if you're not happy with your role, I think if you're a professional basketball player playing for a team that wants to do something in the playoffs, you need to try at a certain level. And I think both of those guys have fluctuated a little bit too much in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I to your point, like I think Austin, DA, and Rui have all looked better when LeBron has been out. And I think it's specifically been because they've gotten more usage. And with DA, I think part of it's also like where LeBron operates on the floor, because he's more of a post-up guy and playing around the basket, that can affect DA's sort of usage and just like where he's at. And then maybe he's more in like the dunker spot or more around the elbow. And then again, with Rui, I think it's very straightforward of just LeBron out, Rui featured more. Like it's that simple. But I agree that this is the final thing. The Lakers need to show they could do this with the big three together. And like, I would like to see everybody try hard, everybody play hard, and just let the chips fall from there. LA Laker fan for life. Thank you for the super chat. I'm tired of the Bron bashing from our own Laker fans. Lakers play better without Bron, and Bron's old. I want him gone. So-called Laker fans and haters said the exact same thing about Kobe back then. To be honest, it's not been fun to discuss this whole narrative. I was going through the comments and in the next video, and I got called a LeBron defender. I got called a LeBron hater. I got called a Luka defender. I got called a Luka hater. And it feels like right now there's just a lot of toxicity going on where I could say the Lakers colors are purple and gold, and someone will disagree with that and say I'm a hater and say I'm find something wrong with it. And like that's been a little frustrating with the recent discourse, and it's certainly amplified over the last couple games with LA having their 2 statement wins without LeBron. I think the one thing that will quiet this will be when LeBron returns. Maybe it's against Chicago, maybe it's against Denver. Like if let's just say he returns against Chicago, they beat Chicago. Then if they play Denver on Saturday and beat Denver with LeBron, I think that will be one thing to like fan or tone down the flames, not fan the flames. Sort of quell the flames here. If they lose to Denver, then all of a sudden the flames are going to be fanned to an even higher rate, right? So, I mean, I understand there's some people looking at Lakers are 10-2 without LeBron on the season. The on-off numbers, he is a slight negative on the season. Interestingly, it's actually the Lakers offense that has struggled more. They are about like a couple points per 100 possessions worse offensively with LeBron. A couple points, I think it might be like 3 points offensively, 2 points better defensively, and that makes him like a -1 point something on the season. For the record, or like on-off differential, I think they're like -0.4 with him on, and then +2 with him off. So I think that's like the 1.6 swing. And then with Luka, it's about a 5-point swing. They go from like +3 to -2, or maybe +2 to -3. And then Austin, it's like +2, -2. So those guys there's been some of the lineup stuff and some like the results are the results. Like you can't, I mean, I think there's a lot of context and nuance with the results, but the results are the results. I think that the final thing here to just sort of end this conversation will be LA beating a good team with the big three together. And because again, I will continue to repeat this until I'm blue in the face. Whether LeBron is starting or coming off the bench, whether LeBron is the second option or third option, if they can't beat Minnesota with the big three, or they can't beat Denver with the big three, or they can't beat Houston with the big three, none of it matters. And we probably will not see the alternative, because I think if the Lakers do lose in round one, there will be a contingent of people who are like, well, if they had only benched LeBron and reduced his minutes and reduced his usage, they would have won the game or they would have won the series. I just don't see that happening. So I think, again, I'm more in the mindset of how do we make this work with the big three and how do we optimize around that? Because we're having a fantasy discussion here of LeBron's not coming off the bench. I would be shocked. I would be stunned. If it happens, I will come out here and I will own that I was completely wrong, but I just do not see a universe in which LeBron James comes off the bench. Rando, thank you for the super chat. Nothing better than a late night, baby. Gang, yes. Appreciate you. Appreciate the super chat. We're going super late now. We're at the 1:20 mark in the morning. So, yeah, nothing like a good late night gang sesh. BT Kingsley, thank you for the super chat. I want to see us versus Denver without LeBron. I think he's going to be back by then, but we'll see if there's a setback. So, like, one of the things that it was what I suspected, but the hip situation that LeBron's now dealing with was part of the fall. He hurt both his hip and his elbow. So that's why they changed the distinction. Against Indiana, it was the elbow. Against New York and tonight, it was the hip. But then also, apparently, this left foot arthritis, which he's been dealing with. You remember he had foot issues. He's had multiple foot issues, but going back a few years, that's actually been worse for him lately than even the hip. I don't think we're going to see it, but again, like that's probably their next opportunity to win with the big three and lower some of this noise. Mosier, thank you for the super chat. Is Austin's hand hurt? I believe it's his wrist, but yeah, I think it's tweaked a little bit. It's sore, but nothing serious to my knowledge. Chris, thank you for the super chat. Really disrespectful of Bam, not going to lie. Yeah, look, like I don't blame Bam. I blame more the two coaches, to be completely honest. I get like a player wanting to score as many points as possible once you reach a certain point, and also the teammates trying to get him the ball. And like there was clearly a galvanizing element of this night. Like Eric Spoelstra was grinning ear to ear. The Heat bench was going wild. The crowd was going wild. I mean, this is the highlight of the Heat season. Let's be honest about this. This is the highlight of the Heat season. They're probably going to lose in round one. They might even be a play-in team. This was the highlight of the Heat season. So like, I get it from that perspective, but yeah, it just was felt a little unethical. That would be my read of like, again, if he got it and they were just force feeding him the ball and he kept like, I don't mind, like take every shot in the fourth quarter, whatever, go for the record. It was more so like a team up 20 fouling another team intentionally to get more possessions. That team just, I don't know what Washington was doing defensively, but then like missing free throws to try to get more possessions. Like they were just kind of gamifying it in a way that it just felt a little icky in my opinion. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. How do you think LBJ should play once he's back, given recent success with AR and Luka? Should he facilitate more and focus on defense? Yeah, and this is a point I've made and with LeBron before, and this was to me is like kind of colored some of the analysis with the big three and their fit and whatnot. And it's actually a compliment to LeBron. But if you go back to last season and the defense that LeBron played, especially during that middle stretch of the season, but I would even argue from like the middle stretch into basically the rest of the season, like I maybe a couple pockets there could have been better defensively, but I thought he had a really strong final, like 60% of the season defensively after like a relative. I mean, remember, speaking of Miami, go back to the Miami game in early December. I've been covering the NBA since 2011. In terms of a game I was at, that's as close to a performance as I've seen from a team in terms of quitting, just straight up. Like the Lakers quit in that Miami game. It was embarrassing. to me, that was the low point of the entire season. Was like, I mean, I believe they lost that game by 41. They just basically quit and stopped playing defense. And it was like, we just want this game to be over. And from that moment on, LeBron and JJ had a conversation. I thought LeBron, remember, he had a little bit of a break there. Once he came back, he was great for the most part defensively. And the reason I bring that up is because I think this is the gift and curse of LeBron. Is the gift of LeBron is one of the most versatile, if not just straight up the most versatile superstar we've ever seen. I think that's part of what makes him so great. Is I'm not going to relitigate or rehash his career, but like at his peak, especially I would say like middle of his career and beyond, once he improved a lot as a jump shooter and also as a post player, he basically did not have a weakness in his game. Maybe free throw shooting, if you want to argue, but like he pretty much could do everything on a basketball court. And I think that versatility, even at age 41, year 23, is what makes him in a way almost have to sacrifice more, because Luka thrives in a certain style. Luka is a heavy pick and roll player, right? And we've seen the proof of concept. It worked in Dallas, made the conference finals, made the finals. It has worked in LA in terms of like LA's offense is much worse when Luka's off the floor and Luka plays in a certain style. We've now seen, especially this season, that Austin thrives in a certain style, playing more on the ball, playing off of Luka when it's just those two. But then also, like, Austin has been at his best when he's running the show. Either LeBron and Luka are both out, or Austin has his own unit. Austin's running high pick and roll. Austin's doing his thing. So, like, those two guys thrive in a very specific situations. Like, of course, they could do more. Luka can post up. They both can come off ball screens and stuff. But, like, their bread and butter is going to be a heavy dose of pick and roll basketball. And the optimal way for pick and roll basketball to thrive is you have your screener, who's often going to be a rim runner or popping big. Sometimes you could do inverted pick and rolls. You could do a stretch big, whatever. But like more often than not, it's going to be a big man. And then you want two guys spacing the floor. So fitting LeBron into that has obviously been a challenge in terms of trying to optimize Luka and Austin, because then LeBron comes in and LeBron can also run pick and roll, but he could also be a post-up threat. He could also be a screener. The last 2 years, has shot 40+% on catch and shoot threes, has not shot that way. But LeBron, almost the gift and the curse with him is that he's so versatile that it's almost like, I think asking Luka and Austin to do certain things, like you can ask them to play off the ball more, to do certain things, but that is really taking away from the strengths of their game. Where LeBron, it's like, yes, you could ask him to do certain things and it takes away from maybe his strengths, but he could do those things at a higher level. Like of the three, LeBron is definitely the best screener and the best roller. I mean, again, he's been a 40+% catch and shoot guy the last couple of years and like has been a good catch and shoot threat and spot up threat over the last couple of years. Now, both Luka and Austin have also been, solid catch and shoot guys. But I just think LeBron's in a tough spot in a way, because sometimes when you could do more, it actually like takes away like the optimal usage is almost taking away your best thing and saying like, hey, play off the ball more, screen more, play in the post more, spot up more. And like you actually get less usage. And then the defensive side is like the version of LeBron we saw last year defensively is better than Luka or Austin defensively, right? Like LeBron he's still 6'9", 260 pounds. Luka and Austin are not 6'9", 260 pounds. LeBron can still jump the highest of the three. He's still the quickest of the three. He's still the strongest of the three. So it's like, there's also, I think, an expectation or a need from him defensively that is not the same ask of those two guys, because I think if all three are going balls to the wall, playing their hardest on defense, and it's just like who can be the best defender, I still think LeBron has the highest ceiling. And I don't think that's crazy, because he has certain physical gifts that Austin and Luka just will never have. They're just not as athletic as him. Like that's one of the things that makes LeBron so special, even at 41. So I think that, yeah, like LeBron's passing, especially passing out of the post and sort of warping the dimensions of the floor, plus his defense need to be things that he leans into more, that the Lakers lean into more. And again, I think just looking at the way that their best offense has often been Luka and Austin together. I mean, even go back to last season, they have a plus 120 net offensive rating with those two together. Like, they need to lean into that. And I think LeBron can fit around that. I think his shot returning to form would go a long way in helping that. But then also on the defensive side, I think you don't want to revolve the entire defense around LeBron, because that's an unfair ask for a 41-year-old. At the same time, he could do like, you could argue among the starters, he has the second highest upside behind Marcus. And like, I would like to see that a little bit more consistently, of him being the second best defender in that lineup, rather than that not always being the case. Chuck Dangler, aka Fang Charlie. Hey, Brate, did you ever get any info about Luka and AR's injury? Both of them seem to be struggling. Still looking forward to email back. Thanks. I think Luka just banged knees, and then they're both, with their style of play, they're both going to get banged up. So I don't think anything serious with either guy, but they both have taken a bunch of shots recently. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. I feel for Luka and his off-court stuff. Do you think it'll affect him and the team? Yeah, so I've not talked about this yet. There was, I don't really want to get too into this, because I mean, the facts are out there, or you know, the reports are out there. So I don't really want to, there's not really much analysis I want to add to it. What I will say is, like, if we look at Luka's season, and I would say like the roughest stretch of Luka's season, when I think he looked the least like himself, was immediately coming back from Slovenia after the birth of his second daughter. And I think at the time it was like, it's obvious, like you're there for the birth of your child, and then you get like that magical couple days, and then you come back and you're away from her. And like, that's got to be, for anybody, I don't care how much money you have, I don't care how famous you are, I don't care how great of a basketball player you are, that's tough for anybody, right? Like, I think that is something that we can all empathize with. But now we have this additional context of the split, and just some of the stuff that happened while he was over there, and him not seeing them from that point on, up to this point. So yeah, I mean, that's real world stuff. I can say as someone who, I don't live in a different country from my son, but I live in a different state from my son. I don't see my son every day. I try to see him as much as I can. Like, that's tough on me. So I can only imagine what that is like for him, being on a different continent from his children and not being able to see them. So for sure, from a human element, like, it makes a lot of sense. And again, I think if you look at when Luka came back and when some of this stuff was happening, like what was going on, it makes some sense that he wasn't quite himself coming back from that trip. So I think it already affected him. I'm sure it's something he's struggling with and having to deal with and battle with on a daily basis. Like, he's in a custody battle. Like, there's human elements to this. So in terms of affecting the team, I don't think it would affect the team. If anything, maybe it galvanizes the group around him and like his support system, and maybe it brings guys a little bit closer. I don't have insight into how much of this was known by the team. I mean, of course, parts of it were known by the team, but I don't know if they had like the entire picture or not. So everyone kind of seeing all the details, like maybe that brings the group closer. But I think it's impossible to not be affected by this on some level, even like 1%, right? I think he's a human, and this is a real world situation he's dealing with, and it's very unfortunate. And I hope it is resolved, as soon as possible. Bosnian Bear, thank Thank you for the super chat. Hey, Brate, do you think the Lakers defense looks better without the old man, LeBron Sr.? He just needs to retire and take the Lakers' most expensive cheerleader, LeBron Jr., with him. You're throwing the grenade, as we're getting close to wrapping up here. I would say, eye test wise, yes, but I also think it's partly like they've played their two best defensive games of the season. So there's definitely correlation there. I don't know if that's causation. Maybe it is. Again, I referenced some of the numbers earlier. If we're going to take the direct numbers, I will bring them up here just so I am being completely accurate. Because I know the numbers have been a big thing for a lot of people here. So LeBron James, this is going into this is after tonight. So let's look at it. Let's look at it coming out of tonight. So going into tonight, Lakers with LeBron on the floor, 113.4 offensive rating. With LeBron off the floor, 116.2 offensive rating. So the Lakers are 2.8 points per 100 possessions worse with LeBron on the floor offensively. Defensively, they have a 113.9 defensive rating with LeBron on and a 115 defensive rating with LeBron off. So they are 1.1 points per 100 possessions better with LeBron on defensively than off. So you combine those two numbers, and with LeBron on, the Lakers have a minus 0.4 net rating. With LeBron off, they are plus 1.3. And overall, that is a 1.7 swing. But it is worth noting they've struggled more offensively with LeBron than defensively. Now, some of this, I think a lot of this actually is colored by the original starting group not working and those minutes being a disaster. And even, they've even played a little bit since it was broken up. And they're at almost 90 minutes and a minus 23 net rating. It's been an utter disaster, the OG starting group, or the OG starting group with the big three. But then also LeBron has played in some of these Banshee bench groups, which have been bad offensively and good defensively. So I think that has shifted some of his numbers. But I would say they look better, but I also think they've been playing harder. So I know some people think that they just play harder without LeBron. We talked about it with DA and Rui, and those are two guys that I think have played harder without LeBron, but I don't think there's some grand conspiracy that everyone's LeBron's out, let's just play harder or better necessarily. But I would say eye test wise, I think they have looked a little better defensively. I don't think he's playing the same level of defense as he did last season. But again, the lineup data actually says the opposite. It says they've been worse offensively with him and better defensively. KB Mamba 248. Appreciate you for becoming a member. Shout out to KB Mamba 248. All right, going to go a few more minutes here. We've at the 1 hour and 30 minute mark. I'm sure the things are going fine in the chat. J Note with the W's in the chat. Shout out to J Note. Ashik asks, hey, Jovan, were you at the Ayton post-game interview? What was up with that? I don't know what was up with that. I was actually in the locker room talking to Austin. Austin and Ayton went at the same time. So I missed it, but I did see I don't know what's up. I believe this is his first post-game availability since the Clint Capella story. So I don't know if he's mad at the media or what. The person who wrote the story was, Dave McMenamin was also in the locker room. So it wasn't even Dave was there for DA to get mad directly at him. So I don't know what was going on. It was odd. It felt like if there's ever a game for him to be full of joy and, elated, this would be the game. So it just kind of, I felt like a moment he should have been happier. Rami, Hey, Jovan, just joining the stream. Have we highlighted Luka's defense and high motor? Yes, I highlighted that in the notable performers section. I thought Luka's defense and motor were both great tonight. And he's been playing really good defense lately overall. Nuggets lost the trade. I don't know if this is a Nuggets hater or a Nuggets supporter based on this. Do you think Luka should win Defensive Player of the Year? I mean, no, but I think he has been really good on defense lately. Jackson said he saw JJ respond on a question about him, like, is trust there now? Yeah, I mean, there was like the one, I thought the one question about him sort of like earning trust with Austin and Luka. Question to DA, not a question to JJ. There was one question that was about him earning trust from Luka and Austin by like getting the offensive rebounds that I thought I could see him not like loving that question. I think it's a fair question, but I also think it's kind of been established that like DA, they want him to play with a certain motor, a certain amount of effort, and then he will be rewarded, and vice versa. And like also setting him up early and then hoping that he'll play harder after that. So that one I could see, that was like the only question I thought I could like see him maybe getting upset with, but that was in the middle of the interview. So he was all right. I mean, Mike Trudell was asking him about the defense and like, it is just like good communication. What was good about the communication? Good terminology. It's like, well, what's going on? OMG. Hey, Jovan, what do you think of Robert Ory's post-game comments on Austin of him coming off the bench but playing maybe starters minutes? I disagree with that. But, you know, this is not the first time I've disagreed with the notion of Austin coming off. I guess I would say I don't know how you watch the last 3 games and come to the conclusion that Austin should be the one to come off the bench. But I just don't think anyone from the big 3 is going to come off the bench. So, I think that's this is not real. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for answering my question the best way you could. You're such a genuine guy, and that's what I love about you. I appreciate that. Like I'm not perfect, and you know but I try to answer questions with as much nuance and context as I can provide. There are always some points I wish I made or things I wish I said, and I mean I leave every show. There's always like 1 to 2 questions I wish I made this point, wish I said this thing. Oh, I forgot about this and whatever. But I try that's I try to answer the questions as best I can. And I appreciate that. Sarah, do you think they'll finally give Bam deep POI? No, not after tonight. Saving Soul. I don't know. I don't know if I'm entering I don't know if this is what's going on there. G, would you get Dave M on the show? Yeah, I got to get ESPN approval is the only thing, but it's overdue. Vlada asks, what's your background? Serbian, Croatian, Slovenian? I am Serbian. I'm half Serbian. Rami says, lately LA has attempted 36 to 43s per game. That's the sweet spot, in my opinion. In addition, they have to keep winning the possession battle. Agreed on both fronts. I have enjoyed the 3-point uptick. Connor Phillips asked if there's any other start times this late rest of season. Let's look at it. No. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more 7:30 p.m. Pacific time games. Chicago, all home games. Chicago, Brooklyn, Cleveland, OKC, Phoenix. So they have 5 more 7:30 p.m. Pacific games. Otherwise, everything else is 7 p.m. or earlier, which makes sense. They only have a couple 7 p.m. games, a few 6:30 games, and then when they're on this road trip, is 6:30, 6:35, 4, 4, 4. Then yeah, so everything's earlier. This is the only 8 p.m. Thankfully. Your boy says, Jovan, join the KD hate train with us, please. I need this. I said my piece on KD and the burner stuff. I've voiced my opinion. I'll say this: KD was cool to me when I talked to him about Achilles recovery. So KD and Clay were both cool to talk to about my Achilles recovery. So that holds some weight with me. Saving soul, Luke Kennard needs to take more threes. He passed one of them up to Vando. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I'll say this is just how Luke Kennard is wired. You're like JJ said, the first press conference he talked about Luke Kennard. Remember, the trade did not go through. It was the Philly. It was the Philly game. The trade had not gone through a pregame, so JJ couldn't talk about it. It went through after JJ spoke. It went through before the game, but after JJ spoke. So he talked about it after the game. One of the first things he said about Luke Kennard is elite shooter, maybe the best shooter in the league, does not shoot enough, and we want him to shoot more. We've seen some progress with that. The volume has gone up, but he should never be passing down a three to pass it to Vando. But as Golden notes, yes, an insane upgrade over Gabe. KD notes, J Note notes that KD seems like a cool ass guy outside of B-ball. Yeah, I would agree with that. Saving soul, Luke is a smart player though in general. I agree, and I actually think that's part of why he's constantly looking for the next, the great shot over the good shot, and I think he could sometimes overthink things. Tally Khalifa, which side of the bracket would you rather be on? 4-5 for OKC or 3-6 for San Antonio? I think the dream scenario for LA would be 3 seed, and then Denver is 4, Minnesota is 5, Houston is 6. LA plays Houston in the 3-6, beats them, then gets San Antonio round 2. Denver and Minnesota beat each other up for 6 or 7 games. I think Denver wins. Then Denver and OKC beat each other up. And if the Lakers can get past the Spurs, they play a beat up OKC team in the conference finals. But I would rather be on the Spurs side. I know the Spurs, they've beaten the Lakers 3 times. A couple of those games, LA was very shorthanded. But I just I think OKC is better than San Antonio. I also think OKC probably a little bit more of a matchup problem for the Lakers than San Antonio is. I think partly it comes down to, for me, I just think Shea is better than Wemby. And also San Antonio is unproven and has yet to win a playoff series together. So one team has been building something for multiple years, has won a championship together. One team is likely going to go through some growing pains in the playoffs. So I would rather be on the OKC side. I'd rather be on the San Antonio side, excuse me. If they're on the OKC side, so be it. Luka's beaten them before. They had a couple games at the end of last year. I just think OKC, to me, I think a team undergoes a different transformation when they go through a championship. And to me, February and March 2025 OKC is different than May 2026 OKC having won a championship and going through that gauntlet. And then also going through this year, having the target on their back, having all these injuries, still being able to withstand it with their incredible depth. I just think I'd rather take the chance on San Antonio going through some of the stuff that young teams go through. I think they're late. I'd much rather face Wemby and Fox than Shea in a late game situation. I just think it's, for me, it's a no-brainer, but between the two. Luke Kennard's not going to be a vet minimum player. Choco Thunder, is SGA going to win the MVP this year? I think so. I think he locked it up with that walk-off shot against Denver. I think when we think about the year Russ won, he had I think it was actually in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. He had a couple of walk-offs, one against Orlando, I believe, and one against Denver. And those were like really standout moments that people, I mean, there's still a lot of time left. There's still about a month left in the season, but it does feel like, I also look at the ESPN straw poll from Tim Bontemps is very accurate and predictive in terms of the trends with MVP, and it moves the betting lines and stuff. And I just think Shea I think he got almost 80 out of the 100 first place votes, or maybe 70 of the first place votes. Like I just think Shea is a heavy favorite right now. JR24 with a great point here. No easy matchups in the West regardless. Yes. I mean, I would say, especially with the top, like the 3, 6, and 4, 5 battles are going to be bloodbaths. I think both of those are probably going to go at least 6 games, most likely. And those are going to both be pretty tough matchups, whether it's LA, Denver, LA, Houston, LA, Minnesota, Minnesota, Houston, Minnesota, Denver, Denver, Houston, whatever the matchups are. Those are going to be 2 really good teams beating the crap out of each other for 6 or 7 games. I think, and then OKC or San Antonio, one of those 2 teams gets the privilege of playing the Clippers in round 1, which I don't think is going to be a cakewalk. Like, they've continued to win. Kawhi's been playing great basketball. So that could be, especially if it's San Antonio, that could be a sneaky, tough first round matchup for San Antonio. But yeah, the West is 7 really good teams I think are going to make the playoffs, and there could even be an 8th if Phoenix, I think Phoenix is going to make it. I'm just saying, like, if they get Brooks back and how he reintegrates and stuff. But yeah, the West is no joke. Sarah Talks Ball. When will you do your MVP ballot, and will you do a Buha's Block episode? I'll do a Beyond the Block awards ballot episode. I don't think I have a ballot this year. Unlike I've had a ballot twice. I don't think I'm going to have one this year, but we'll see. LeGoat James, Jovan, Rudy Gobert is once again unplayable against the Lakers dating back to last year. Also, Wolves are saving their energy for the Clippers. Yeah, I mean, outside of Game 5, Rudy Gobert was underwhelming. I mean, he's unplayable offensively. I think defensively, he will always have a certain amount of utility in the rebounding and whatnot. But yeah, rough stuff. Verbal Karate, why are we all awake? It's a great question. I do need to go to bed soon. I'm doing Spectrum tomorrow. Can't be sleepwalking through that. OMG, what do you think of Jake LaRavenson? I talked about him earlier during the notable performers section, but quickly, like, certainly has to be better offensively. Can't be missing dunks and layups. That's just, there's got to be a certain bar for that. But I think tonight in particular, 7 rebounds, 5 offensive, had over a third of LA's offensive rebounds, 8 free throw attempts, and 4 assists. Plus, I think some really good defense. Like, I think he did a lot well tonight outside of shoot and score the basketball. So I know that that's sometimes like the low hanging fruit of what people want to focus on, but there is more than just scoring and shooting. Now, like with Rui out, it would have been a nice opportunity. Like, LeBron's out, Rui gets in foul trouble. Jake is now put in position to be out there with the starters. Luka and Austin were cooking. So I give a pass with a little bit of it, but got to be better than 1 for 7 and 0 for 2 on threes. J-Note asking about Kennard in free agency. And yeah, I agree with everyone. Like, I agree. Jake plays hard. I think Jake, the shooting stuff can be a little frustrating at times, but I think in general, Jake plays the right way and he plays hard. Kennard, it's going to be interesting. Like, one thing I talked about with Eric Pincus last week on the episode we did with the cap breakdown is the Lakers are going to have, so they're going to have somewhere between, let's just say 48 to 57 million in cap space. I think that's a more realistic projection depending on what they do with some people. Like, does Kennard fit into that? And if they're not, because theoretically to create that cap space, they are rescinding the rights to Kennard, to LeBron, to Rui, etc. So if they keep Kennard, they would have to either use cap space on him or an exception. So does he fit into part of that cap space, or do they earmark that $9 million room exception for him, and they don't have to give him all of it, but they can give him part of it? The one kind of tricky thing here is Marcus Smart as a 5 whatever million player option. I'm fairly certain Marcus Smart's going to opt out. Marcus Smart has been more than a $5 million player. I don't think he will get his full maximum value just because of his age and his injury history. But Marcus Smart has been, in my opinion, much closer to an $8 million player, $10 million, $12 million, somewhere in that general range. I think he's going to get it. Like, if I'm any other team in the West, or like kind of hoping to have like a Phoenix type jump next year, I would love to add Marcus Smart as a bench player. So I think there's going to be some competition for him, especially with a relatively underwhelming free agent class. So like Marcus will potentially make a certain amount. You also have Rui, and like, how does Rui factor in? Does Rui factor into the cap space, or what's going on there? You also have Jackson Hayes, who I think has outperformed his minimum contract, and he's another guy who you'd have to rescind the rights to. And then are you earmarking part of that exception for him? So Kennard, I think part of this will come down to how he fares in the playoffs. And like, he has been someone who has sort of been like phased out of his team's rotations in certain seasons, like later in the season. I don't foresee that happening in LA, but he could also be someone maybe in that, $8 to $10 million range, maybe 12 on the high side, which would be, part of the non-taxpayer MLE. I think it just depends on how he performs, what the Lakers situation is. But he's someone easily who I think is in that like 8 to 10 range. And if it goes a little bit higher, I think it partly depends on the market and the playoffs. But I do think in general, we're moving into a new phase with the CBA where the role player contracts are going to be artificially deflated, and it is becoming more of a haves and have nots. And like the bar to play, the bar to pay a guy 15, 20, 25 million is going to be even higher than it used to be, just because every dollar counts in the new CBA, and you need to pay your stars, you need to pay your starters, you need to pay your high level bench guys. But like, you really don't want to be paying, like, the worst thing you could do is be paying your back end bench guys 10, 11, 12 million dollars. And Lakers have done that, several years. But I think Kennard will be somewhere in that. He could be a candidate for that $9 million room exception. It's just Marcus Smart could also be a candidate for that. Jackson Hayes could be a candidate for part of that. So like, I think it's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna be tough for LA to keep Jackson, Marcus, and Luke. I could see them keeping maybe 2 of the 3, but I think it's gonna be tough to keep all 3. Pinty, I think for the super check, can we go over the cap for Rui, like 16 million Bird? So they do have Rui's bird rights, and they can go over the cap with him. The issue with Rui is that his cap hold, I believe, is somewhere like 27, 29 million. So it would actually make more sense to, like, what they're trying to do with Austin, right, is they're going to keep Austin on his cap hold because Austin's cap hold is less than the contract he's going to sign. So it actually makes more sense where you keep the cap space. Then once you make your moves, you then add Austin onto that, but you're allowed to do that because you've got his bird rights, and you're signing him to a bigger deal. With Rui, it's the inverse, where you're actually going to be signing Rui to a smaller deal than the contract that he's going to be on in terms of the cap hold. So that's where Rui's in a little bit of a tough situation, where if you wait to sign Rui, if you sign Rui immediately, it's locked in at that number. If you wait to sign Rui, you now have him on the books at a higher number, which actually decreases your cap space to use. So they actually probably should either like make a really quick decision on Rui, or they could wait, but then that's artificial. Like, it depends on, they're going to do their due diligence coming out of the playoffs and you going into the offseason in terms of like a lot of times in the days leading up to free agency, teams know this guy's going here, this guy's going there, this trade's happening, this. And the Lakers should have a sense of, are we using our cap space? Are we trading for someone? Like what's going on here? And that should inform what they do with LeBron, with Rui, with Luke, with Marcus, with Jackson, with all these guys. But I would say with Rui, like 60 million could definitely be the range, but it's at a little bit of a tricky spot because again, when we talk about, let's just say 55 million, 57 million, whatever, that is 55, 57 because Rui's not on the books. If Rui's on the books for his cap hold, that's now high 30, let's just say 38 million. Actually, no, it's even more. 28 million. So that's a big difference, right? But if you sign Rui to the 16, that still drops that from like 55, 57 to now 41 or so, 39. So point being, this is where like Rui could be a casualty of the Lakers situation in terms of just what else is out there. And if they're trying to get a Peyton Watson, if they're trying to get a Walker Kessler, if they're trying to trade for somebody, they need a certain amount of room, and Rui directly conflicts with that. Now they can rescind his rights and still re-sign him. So that could also be a way that they go of, hey, we're going to pursue Peyton Watson. We're going to pursue this player. And if they don't land those guys, they can circle back to Rui and pay him more than just about anybody else, unless he wants to go to Chicago or Brooklyn. But I think realistically, his market's going to be the non-taxpayer MLE unless Brooklyn or Chicago offers him more. I don't really see it with Brooklyn. Maybe I could see it with Chicago. I think he'd be a nice fit in Chicago, but there's not a lot of teams with cap space. And I think Rui's lower on the pecking order of like players that would be offered higher contracts than the non-taxpayer MLE. So that actually plays into the Lakers' favor of, if he's getting 15 million from basically the market, you could just add a little bit extra if you need to and like outbid anybody. The issue is just like free agency is a game of musical chairs, and a lot of the deals get resolved in the first 2-3 days. So if you can't pull off a trade, if you can't pull off a restricted free agent, then you might just keep Rui. And so it could go a couple ways. It could go LA just signs him quickly and decides to keep him and he's a part of it. Or it could go, they're exploring their options and they're just kind of hopeful that he won't get signed elsewhere. Or maybe they tell him like, don't sign yet. If we can't do XYZ, we'll circle back and we'll pay you more than the market can. So that's a couple of ways it could play out. Emmy says top priorities in the summer should be Kessler and Watson. I agree. Rami notes they have bird rights on Hayes. He has a low cap hold. No need to use the room exception to re-sign him. That's fair. I mean, I think it depends on what could certainly keep him on his cap hold. Depends on how much they want to pay him. But that, yeah, I mean, that's a fair note on Hayes. All right. I'm going to wrap here, though. I appreciate you guys for rocking with me for almost 2 hours here. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. I'll be back on Thursday after Lakers Bulls. Might do a live at some point, either tomorrow or Thursday during the day. Been trying to go live almost every day here, but I missed the super chat. All right, I missed. Yeah, sorry. Pinty, quickly from Pinty. Pinty notes, Hayes has a cap hold of 6.5 million. Give him 8 over cap. Let me see what that 8 is maybe. I mean, you could argue for Jackson at 8. I would say. Depends what else is out there. Like I know people have, like, for example, with like Nick Claxton, right? Let's just say Nick Claxton is a possibility for LA. I know some people have said that they don't want Nick Claxton because they already have Jackson. I would personally not base the starting decision off of the backup. I would more so reverse that and be like, I need the foundation piece. I need the starter. And then I construct the roster around that and the backup around that, if that makes more sense. So like, I'd be okay. If bringing in Nick Claxton ultimately costs Jackson, I'd be more open to that than just being like, well, I'm writing off Nick Claxton because I have Jackson Hayes already, if that makes sense. Looking at, his cap, Spot Track has his cap hold at 4.5 million. I know there's different projections on cap holds. I mean, that's low enough that that's not that much above the vet min. But he's definitely due for a raise. I think even over the 4.5. I'd be open to using just bird rights on him and giving him a little bump on that. So maybe that's in like the $6 to $8 million range, but it just depends on there's several things it depends on. And then Keon Park, thank you for super chat. You think we could see AR Kessler sign and trade? Trev said Jazz can't keep Kessler this summer. They also want AR, right? We want Kessler. I would not. So I don't know the context of Trevor's comment here, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that. But I would say that they turned down a couple of offers from Indiana and Toronto that I think it would be short-sighted and a mistake on Utah's part to turn down those offers and then not keep Kessler. I think those offers signaled that they were intent on keeping Kessler and at least moving forward temporarily with the Kessler, Markkanen, Triple J front court. They do have interest in AR. It was not something I had reported publicly, but I'd heard that behind the scenes. Eric Pincus ended up reporting that on my show. So theoretically, there could be something there with the potential sign and trade, but with the way that Keontae George is playing and with the way that they rejected a couple of offers for Kessler at the deadline, I think they're going to try to keep Kessler. Now, I think he's potentially poachable if you reach a certain number. Like if you get to 32 or 35 million, I think they start to sweat and wonder if that's actually worth it. So I think he, at an aggressive price, I think you might be able to get Kessler, but I would rather just add Kessler to Luka and Austin rather than trade Austin. All right. I'm wrapping here though. Appreciate you guys. Now we cross the 2-hour threshold. But shout out to the chat. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back on Thursday for sure, potentially tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your morning, because we're officially in morning territory. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang.